And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking an absolutely sublime script. If you want a sequel to the F1 movie, yes, we have 3 title contenders thanks to the Qatar Grand Prix going into Abu Dhabi. But should have it been like that? Did McLaren again leave an absolute open goal for Max Verstappen? Spoiler alert, yes. So here we go. Congratulations to Max Verstappen. The sea parted once again via McLaren. And Max, well, you don't want to give him too much of a chance. You don't want to give him any chance because he is going to come through. And he's now not that many points behind Lando Norris. 12, in fact. We'll get into that in a bit. Because this is your top 10. So it's Max Verstappen winning. Oscar Piastri second. Well done to Carlos Sainz. A second Williams podium. That hasn't happened this decade, I don't think. Lando Norris in 4th. Kimi Antonelli 5th. 6th was George Russell. 7th was Fernando Alonso. 8th was Charles Leclerc. 9th was Liam Lawson. 10th Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, Ferrari did eventually score a point. Just 4 this weekend. But the biggest thing is Max Verstappen. How did he win? Well, he got a good start. He beat Lando Norris on the start. And then I don't even want to say they beat McLaren on strategy. They just did what made sense and McLaren didn't, but more on that in a bit. So this is your top 3 going into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. 408 points for Lando Norris. 396 for Max Verstappen. And 392 for Oscar Piastri. So Oscar, he's a good amount of points. That's 16 points down. Max Verstappen, 12 points down. Is Lando still the favourite? Normally, yes. But the way McLaren are going racing, and Lando, this was a weekend he wasn't particularly good. This is the first weekend, I think, since the summer break where he's been a bit lacklustre. Is the pressure getting to Lando? That's the big question. So this was the full race rundown. Sadly, I don't really have a better one. I can't zoom in anymore. But I'll read it to you. So Max Verstappen, he finished 7.9 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri, who was hunting him down on the bad strategy. Let's be fair, he didn't pit when the safety car came. We'll get into that. Carlos Sainz finished 3rd, 22.6 seconds down. Lando Norris, thanks for a mistake from Kimi Antonelli, finished 23.3 just. You wonder another few laps maybe, but to be fair, Lando didn't really look like for quite a while he was going to get by Kimi Antonelli, did he? George Russell in 6th, Fernando Alonso in 7th. Fernando Alonso finished 54 seconds down, George Russell 48. Remember, George Russell had a really, really bad start, didn't he? Liam Lawson in 9th, well done. That was not bad, 60 seconds down. Yuki Tsunoda, 61 seconds down, again, not bad at all, not bad at all. So Alexander Albon, 11th, just missing the points. He'll be somewhat frustrated, won't he? Lewis Hamilton again, 12th, 77 seconds off the lead. Yes, I know he started pretty much near the back, but still. Gabriel Bortoleto, 13th, Franco Colapinto, 14th, Esteban Ocon, 15th, Pierre Gasly in 16th, Lance Stroll 17th, and Isaac Hadjar in 18th. That's your top 18, because it was sadly Oliver Bearman Hulkenberg that essentially didn't really finish. Hulkenberg had a whoops-a-daisy, I think, with Pierre Gasly, who was struggling at the time anyway. These are the, I think this is from the FA, the official thing. Fastest lap went to Oscar Piastri at 1:22.996, which was about half a second faster than what Max Verstappen could do. But Max Verstappen didn't need to, did he? No, he very much didn't. So, when you look at this, I know we've done this before, this is Max Verstappen chasing the championship down. Now, in the Netherlands, he was 104 points behind the lead. At the time, it was Piastri. Italy, 94. Catching up, isn't he? Then after Azerbaijan, 69. It was a great weekend for him. Really bad for Piastri, if you remember. Both those whoops-a-daisies in the wall. Singapore, 63. Then United States, 40. Mexico, 36. Brazil, it went up, 49. Oh dear, championship over? No, because Las Vegas happened. McLaren got DQ'd. And Qatar, finally, McLaren didn't get DQ'd. But, I mean, well, something got DQ'd from their strategy, because they are now 12 points behind, as in he's now 12 points behind Lando Norris. And that's going to be massively concerning if you are McLaren. 408, 396, 392. That's going to be a number we're going to be hearing for the next week until we get to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. By this time next week, we'll know who's champion. Now, we spoke about Lando Norris getting by voluntarily Kimi Antonelli. Red Bull were suggesting that Kimi Antonelli let him through. interviewed him. We heard Rebel saying that you let Lando pass, and Kimi said, I was trying to do my race, I was trying to get to the podium, I was pushing hard and just lost the rear and went off track. We have seen that enough times here, to be fair. That was on purpose, nothing to do about it. Why would Mercedes do that? They're trying to fight in the Constructors' Championship. Toto Wolff came out and said, Lambiase, as in Max Verstappen's teammate, and Kimi, said Kimi let Lando through. I understand GP getting emotional, he lost 2 points. And he said, but we're fighting for second in the Constructors' Championship, scoring the maximum points is crucial, so he didn't let anyone through, he simply made a mistake, and I'm just as annoyed about it as he is. Sour grapes from Red Bull? Yes, if I'm honest. I mean, let's be honest, they've been getting enough presents from McLaren the last few races, but there we go. Yeah, they should be really happy on the 408, 392, 396. It's just absolutely insane, isn't it? So every scenario, this is how Norris, Verstappen or Piastri can win the F1 title. This is from the race.com. I thought I'll go into it. So the 25 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is going to mark Formula One's first multi-title showdown all the way since 2010, where whatever it was, I think it was Lewis Hamilton, Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel, and Fernando Alonso, 4 people. They are saying that basically Norris does remain the favourite. Completely agree. All drivers, though, are on 7 Grand Prix wins. It is impossible for either Verstappen or Piastri to win and finish level on points with Norris. So if there is a tie, it means one of the 3 won, and it will go down to second place finishes. Grand Prix only, sprints do not count. That's interesting. Norris owns the tiebreaker there by virtue of 8 second places versus 5 for Verstappen and 4 for Piastri. Interesting. Here's the state of play. So get your books out. Norris wins the champion if he wins. Norris is second, Norris is third. Now, Norris is 4th, Verstappen doesn't win. Norris is 5th, Verstappen doesn't win. Norris is 6th, Verstappen doesn't win. Piastri doesn't win. Norris is 7th, Verstappen doesn't win, and Piastri doesn't win. He wins it. Norris is 8th, Verstappen is 3rd or lower. Piastri doesn't win. Norris is 9th, Verstappen is 4th or lower. Piastri doesn't win. Norris is 10th, Verstappen is 4th or lower. Piastri is 3rd or lower. Norris doesn't score, Verstappen is 4th or lower. Piastri is 3rd or lower. That is how Lando Norris can win the championship. Now, how can Max Verstappen win the championship? Verstappen wins, Norris is 4th or lower. Verstappen is 2nd, Norris is 8th or lower. Piastri doesn't win. Verstappen is 3rd, Norris is 9th or lower. Piastri doesn't win. And Piastri doesn't win. Now, Oscar Piastri is the 2025 world champion. If Piastri wins, Norris is 6th or lower. Piastri is 2nd, Norris is 10th or lower. And Verstappen is 4th or lower. So there we go. Interesting stuff, isn't it? Yeah. So what do we call it? Permutations of that. But I would like to talk about the big, let's be fair, it is the big story, isn't it? It is. The big story, the big McLaren choke. McLaren, are they going to be writing a book on how to lose a championship? This was Lando Norris pretty much saying, I just want to go to bed. I completely understand. That's after the Qatar Grand Prix. Absolute disastrous. He's got to lay some of the blame, though, for a mess up in qualifying. Him and McLaren not quite making it, because I think he definitely had the potentially had the faster package than Piastri. Because in the first one, he was faster. We will never know. But he stopped the chance. The start wasn't particularly great. Yes, Verstappen started slightly on the clean side, but it wasn't great. And then Verstappen went through, and then his pace just wasn't. It's hard. And Verstappen now is just 12 points behind Lando Norris. Remember, he's ahead of Oscar Piastri now. 408, 396, 392. That is how the driver standing reads. This is what they said to Zak Brown. So basically, McLaren, the reason why they did so bad is on lap 7. There was a safety car. Lap 7 was the magic number where you could pit and then you had 50 laps left, ergo 2 25 lap slots. Because if you remember, at the Qatar Grand Prix, the tyre, you could only do 25 laps on a set of tyres. So that's why lap 7 was key. Everyone pitted but McLaren. It was obvious that this is unless you have a massive offset, and even Lando Norris at the end, as we see, couldn't really get by Kimi Antonelli decently. It was very difficult to pass. So once again, clean air is king, track position is king. Someone didn't mention that to McLaren, and this is what Zak Brown had to say.
You saw Max coming in. Did it cross your mind or the strategies to call Lando with him and split the cars?
No, we didn't want to kind of change what we decided to do coming into the race. I think it's always dangerous to maybe kind of second guess yourself of what you've thought about coming in, but we'll have to evaluate it. It clearly didn't work out our way, and need to just go give Oscar and Lando big hugs because they did their job this week.
You saw Max.
And that's what's interesting. He said they did their job this week, and I think both the drivers did. In particular, Oscar Piastri. That's Montoya asking the questions. Sorry, they did their job, but McLaren didn't on the strategy. Now you have to wonder the theories behind it. Is it because McLaren want to be so even with the drivers? They did not want to let either Oscar or Lando pit because ultimately Lando would have had to wait behind Oscar. Didn't have enough time to double stack smoothly. He would have had to wait with the train of F1 cars and stopped him from coming out because obviously, you can't. Maybe he just would have made it. It was risky. Maybe it favoured Oscar too much. And then you have to wonder, if I was Lando, I'd have just booted it in there anyway and gone against team orders. I've got a championship to win. But then, everyone would have gone, oh, that's so bad. But still, whatever way you cook it, it was the obvious thing to do. And McLaren didn't do it. They think different works sometimes, not all the time. This was Lando Norris' take on it.
Could have been a 6-point game. Could have been a 7-point game that Oscar got today. It's only 6. I'm trying to find you a positive. But tell me what was going on in the car and the communications when everyone pitted under the safety car. Were you wanting to come in?
He should have done. Let's be fair. As I've said, he should have come in. Let's see what he says.
It's tough. We just had to have faith in the team making the right decision. Always a gamble. I feel like we're the ones who took the gamble in a way, but
he's being really nice, isn't he? He's basically saying we're the ones that took the gamble. Have faith in the team. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean now it's the wrong decision. We shouldn't have done it. Oscar lost the win and I lost P2. So we didn't do a good job today, but we've done plenty of good jobs in other races, and we won the constructors 6 races ago because of that. So no, not our finest day, but that's life.
Could have been a 6.
Not our fine. I mean, he's not Lewis Hamilton downbeat, is he? But still, yeah, it is really, really disappointing. I mean, even Oscar Piastri, they said, check the flag, Oscar, your pace was incredible. But he then said, speechless, I don't have any words. Now, he is now third in the championship. You can make an argument least likely to win that championship. Indeed. Which is kind of depressing, isn't it? If you're an Oscar fan, because I think, it's difficult. No one ever deserves to do it in Formula 1 because it's a sport, but in terms of pace, I don't think did anything wrong. He definitely deserved the win. He was definitely, the best driver of the weekend. So speechless Oscar, he fumes at McLaren tactical mistake in Qatar. Speechless was he on the radio. And as he said, it even says here, it was a perfect weekend. After that clash between Pierre Gasly and Nico Hülkenberg on lap 7, McLaren were the only team decided not to go in the safety car. Now, at the end of a weekend that saw Oscar move to third, speechless. I don't have any words. Piastri said it was pretty obvious in hindsight that McLaren should have pitted when everyone else did. Clearly we didn't get it right tonight. Piastri, who now trails Lando Norris by 16 points. It was, 24, wasn't it, coming in? He said, I drove the best race I could as fast as I could, and there was nothing left out there, so tried my best, but wasn't to be tonight. I think in hindsight it's pretty obvious what we should have done, but I'm sure we'll discuss it as a team. It's not all bad, obviously. It's been a really good weekend. The pace was very strong, but obviously a little tough to swallow at the moment. It absolutely is, Oscar. I feel for you. This is him in the interview.
Max is now in that P2 position.
Oh, it's got to burn! Max is now in that P2. Look, he's biting. He's biting his lip. What's he going to say?
There's a lot of work to do in Abu Dhabi. How do you reset? How do you pick yourself up and go into that weekend? And can you just ask the team, can we just throw it all out there, please? Can we just do this and not worry about each other and just go for it? We've got a third person in this now.
Wow, this interview's talking a lot.
just strive like I did this weekend. That's all I can do. It was more than good enough to dominate this weekend, and if I can do the same thing next weekend, then I'll be a happy man.
Absolutely the right mindset. I've got to go in to win the race. I've got to win the race, and then we'll see. That's all he has to do. And also, if he wins the race, that's probably going to help Lando Norris if he's second or if he's third, for example, if Verstappen's between them. What's interesting, though, is if we have a scenario the same as Qatar, where if Lando finishes fourth and Max wins, Max is the champion. But if Oscar Piastri then goes back 2 positions, gives up his P2 and his podium for Lando, then Lando's the champion. If we see a scenario like that, I mean, McLaren have kind of already come out and said, no, there will be no scenario like that. No team orders, but it'll be interesting, when it counts. So, and they're talking about, and even motorsport.com have come out and said, has McLaren just scored an own goal into the Qatar Grand Prix? Our writers have their say. Yeah, and McLaren's called not to pit Oscar Lando during the safety car period. Gave Verstappen basically, in hindsight now, looking back, it is a lot easier. Hindsight is 2020. But even at the time, it was obvious that was the wrong decision, I feel. He's cut the deficit to 12 points, pretty much half as what he came in. And the outcome appeared to hinge on McLaren's decision not to pit either of its drivers, so as McLaren made another error. And they're also saying there are some parallels between McLaren's strategy disaster here and its double DQ in Las Vegas. Yes, there were mitigating factors, but all the other cars that were checked were legal. Yes, a safety, yeah, I guess so. They're the people that weren't. Safety car always makes the decision tougher, but pretty much everyone else seems to have made the right call. Given Qatar's unusual but well-known strategy outlook, dictated by the mandatory two-stop, I would be shocked if McLaren hadn't accounted for the exact safety car scenario. I mean, there is no right for Verstappen to be let into this title fight, yet here he is. And I think that says a lot, both for Verstappen, how good he is, and how bad McLaren have been at the moment. Yet here he is. Yet here Max is in that title fight. And he would be a well-deserved champion given how he has driven. He absolutely would. I'm not saying Norris or Piastri deserve to lose it, but McLaren is letting its drivers down too much. McLaren's letting its drivers down. I don't think the drivers over the course of the season haven't possibly so much. They've had their moments. Lando in Canada, Piastri in the Brazil sprint race, and basically the whole Baku weekend. McLaren's Las Vegas did double DQ for excessive plant wear. Led the team apologising to both drivers, and they're going to have to apologise today for their decision not to pit. Now, they're talking about why didn't McLaren pit, and they said this over the radio. We need to be flexible. Well, you weren't really, were you? Flexibility was one reason given during the race, but the small silver lining, taken from losing track position and giving Verstappen free air, which he used to pound to victory at a circuit where both these elements were key and just made no sense. They're saying, I completely concur. The drivers have made their share of mistakes this season, which we're talking about, but when the pressure cranked up across the triple header finale, it is the team that's letting the drivers down. McLaren messed up big time with their call in Qatar, not bringing either driver in when the entire rest of the field. It reminded me very similar to Hungary 2021, when everyone pitted from inters to dry tyres except Lewis Hamilton. We had that really bizarre, the really bizarre image of Lewis Hamilton on his own. As the 5 lights go out, it was just so strange. And they're talking about, with all the data at its disposal and the knowledge of how its drivers, how close its drivers were with title rival Verstappen, leaving both drivers out in the cold was a big mistake. Acting in the way almost every other team would by giving the lead driver the first call would have almost certainly secured a 204th race win for the team. And when the focus of Formula 1 is chasing every win, yeah, absolutely. Verstappen's title now looks more real. Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, these are the writers having to say, are papaya rules causing the team to panic? I previously argued that McLaren shouldn't favour Norris over Piastri in the title race in order to keep things fair between two drivers who have a realistic chance of becoming champion, but this was just unnecessary. Either McLaren was unprepared for this scenario, which would be more surprising from the team, or they panicked as they realised the implications in terms of papaya. We need to ban that term, don't we, for next year? But in that case, the only reasonable call was to double stack them. It was, even if Norris took a minor loss, because the final result today could have been far, far worse than second and fourth. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a very happy Max Verstappen saying, thank you very much, McLaren, for my early Christmas present. Now, here's the scary thing here. I'm going to leave you guys with this deficit to the World Drivers' Championship. Going into the season finale with today's points format, Kimi Raikkonen in 2007 will be 12 points behind with today's points format. Max Verstappen in 2025 will also be 12 points behind. You couldn't write this script if you tried, and if you want to know, in 2007 it was Kimi Raikkonen was the world champion, coming back from what would have been the equivalent of 12 points down using the current point system. Oh dear indeed. And breathe. So let's then get into the data. The Qatar Grand Prix explain what happened to Oscar Piastri, arguably the favourite going in. He led from the start until lap 7, then had an absolute blunder. But when you look at Piastri's pace, even compared to Norris's, it was mighty. We've got the average pace in a bit we'll get into. But yeah, it was mighty. I mean, Verstappen... Norris was slightly more inconsistent than Verstappen, but it was, when you look at Norris and Verstappen, their pace was fairly similar. But it was Oscar Piastri's pace that was just insane at the end on those tyres, and well, we know what happened. Yeah, Carlos Sainz and Antonelli. These are the two people that, let's be fair, Lando Norris couldn't get past. Whether it's because, as we know, McLaren historically, but not all the time, but most of the races have had not the best. I don't know whether they're kind of draggy or they just choose the high downforce setup for most of their tracks, because it's not the best car in straight line speed. That quite often has been the Red Bull up until recently. So yeah, and massively disappointing there. Russell ended up having a whoops-a-daisy at the start. Alonso fairly consistent. Hadjar not bad at all until his tyre went boom. Which is kind of like really sad, if I'm honest. Then you had Leclerc. To be fair, Leclerc and Hamilton's pace weren't massively. Hamilton was arguably more consistent and slightly bit slow, but he would have been in traffic. So I think Hamilton's got a few nice things to say about that. Not many, if I'm honest, about Ferrari. Lawson and Hadjar, very similar pace. Hadjar just a tad fast, but well done, Liam Lawson. Sonoda again, a lot slower than Max Verstappen, sadly. And then even when you look at the back, Hulkenberg, Pearman, why bother? Connor Pinto last. I mean, you know, I've said, why did they sign Connor Pinto again? I've absolutely no idea. So as you can see here, this makes for funny viewing. Pretty much everyone. Lap 7. Everyone, apart from both McLaren drivers. Lap 24 for Piastri, lap 25. If you remember, the tyres were only allowed to do 25 laps until you had no more than 25 laps. Now, the magic number of the 57 lap was lap 7, simply because then you were in that, you're in that two-stop territory. If you cut 50, divide by 2 is 25, isn't it? For those stints. So the safety car came out on lap 7. Everyone came in on lap 7, but Esteban Ocon for some reason, who then came in on lap 9. I think I would have risked just staying out, see what happens. And then the McLarens pitted on lap 24 and 25. They were initially faster than Max Verstappen, but then as their tyres wore out, that kind of like Max started to peg them a bit. Stabilise the gap. I'll get away from that other image. But you've then got all the other teams. You then got all the other teams pitting on lap 32. Apart from Esteban Ocon, who was lap 34. And then he went. Also, Ocon was the only one to go on. It says here on the used hards. Everyone else had new hards. And then it was Piastri not going on the softs. He did have used softs, didn't he, Piastri? But he's pitted on lap 42. Went on the hards, as did Lando Norris, lap 42 on the hards. I don't know why they didn't go on the hards a bit sooner, but there we go. Or even try the softs. Why not? I mean, what have you got to lose at that point? Nothing, really. And I thought, but there we go. And yeah, it was really, really simple, wasn't it? And then obviously, Colapinto, Ocon, Gasly, 56. Hadjar ended up having that puncture, in spite of, let's be fair, having quite decent pace. So this was the average gap to Verstappen. 0.3 for to Piastri, actually, who was the fastest. Lando Norris, average, was about 0.3 slower. Verstappen was just under 0.4 slower. So McLaren had the fastest car as well, and this is what's so frustrating. Then you got Carlos Sainz. It was about 8.5 off. Kimi Antonelli 9 off. Russell 1.3 seconds off. Now, when you look at, I said the Hamilton's pace wasn't that bad, but it was nearly half a second slower than Leclerc. Leclerc was 1.533. Hamilton was 1.943 off. The slowest was Oliver Behrman. That's because of the whoops at AG, earlier on. Other notable things: Alonso 1.4, Hadjar 1.4, and Lawson 1.5. So Lawson was about 0.1 off Hadjar's pace, which I think he's going to be happy with. And what's really important about the data when you look at the Racing Bulls, we still don't know. Red Bull may well do, but we still don't know who's signed for Racing Bulls for next year. There's still going to be massive question marks there, isn't there? So this is the Qatar standings. Obviously, there we go. Piastri pitted. Verstappen took the lead. There's not many exciting things, but this is always interesting. This is reaction times at the start. Okay, so the fastest being Sonoda was the king. 2.8 seconds. That's a 0 to 100. The 0 to 200. That's normally like well into the second phase of the start. Was 5 seconds. So that's not bad at all. The second fastest was Charles Leclerc. 2.9 seconds. 0 to 100. So it's not only that will not only be reaction time, but that's stopping the wheel spinning, getting off really, really smoothly. Yeah. Kimi Antonelli had a disastrous start, 2.9 seconds initially, and then something must have happened because it was 5.8 seconds. He was a full, 7 tenths, 8 tenths slower than the fastest, getting to that 100k along with Hadjar as well, 5.9. When we look at Lewis, at 3.1, so a couple of tenths slower than Leclerc, then 5.3, getting up to 100. But when we look at the fastest of the title contenders, it was Piastri getting a perfect start, 3 seconds. Was from reaction time, getting to 100 kilometers per hour, and then it was 5.2 seconds. When we look at Lando Norris, he was 3 seconds, and kind of like his reaction time was quite good even compared to Verstappen. Verstappen here was 3.1, and that was getting to 100k, and it seemed to be, and so often with Norris, that second phase of the start, 5.4, a couple of tenths slower than Verstappen, and that's potentially what did it, and that's what guaranteed Verstappen going into that first corner ahead of Lando Norris. And these were the pit times, the fastest 28.2. That's not the stop, that's the whole stop, so that's the from the pit lane to the pit lane. And that was 28.2 seconds. Brilliant. McLaren, 28.3. But Sauber, well done. That's going to stand them in good stead when Audi come, isn't it? Then you've got the V-Carb, 28.45. Williams, 28.6. Red Bull, 28.6. Not bad at all. The slowest being Haas, 35.1. And Mercedes, 30.6. I mean, Ferrari not great either, really. 29.9. Yeah, work in progress there. Now, is it top speed? Sonoda, 3.45. When we look at Lando Norris, though, he's all the way at 3.34, because, I mean, even Piastri on 3.38. And they both, I think, they both would have had DRS at one point as well. So 3.34, that's not fast at all, is it? But when we look at Kimi Antonelli, he's 3.31, slightly slower in terms of his max speed, but Norris still could not get by him. The slowest was Carlos Sainz. Yeah, he finished third on 3.27. Both are Ferraris, quite similar. 338 for the top speed for Leclerc, and 338 was the top speed for Lewis Hamilton. Obviously 338 for Piastri as well. 337 for George Russell, but 332 for Max Verstappen. But then did he really get DRS at all? No, I don't think he did much. I don't think he got much of DRS at all during that race at all. So if you want to know the average pace, let's have a look, shall we? So McLaren, they're saying, is 24.904 was the average pace for the McLaren. The average pace for the Red Bull was nearly 4 tenths slower on a 25.3. Williams were 25.7. They were 8.5 tenths, 0.855 seconds slower than McLaren. 9 tenths slower were Mercedes. I mean, Mercedes were the third slowest Mercedes-powered team. Embarrassing. Aston Martin also with the Mercedes, 1.4 down. 1.491 for Racing Bull, so nearly 1.5. Ferrari were the 7th fastest car in Qatar. That's just disastrous, isn't it? On 1.5 seconds. Next up, we have Alpine on a 126.9. 2 seconds down. Oh my gosh. Kick Sauber to 126.9, 2 seconds down, and Haas 2.1 seconds down. If you want to see the visual, there it is there in terms of the average pace. But now let's get in. I'm gonna have to. You're gonna have to bear with me a minute because I'm gonna have to stop. But we're gonna be getting into our winners and losers. But in terms of the championship, everyone's going, Lando Norris is going to choke. It's really, that's what I'm hearing when I look online and everything. McLaren are choking, and it seems with what we've been saying, it definitely seems the teams, as in McLaren, are potentially choking way more than the drivers. Now, if you remember, going back to 2020, I'm not talking about the end of it, but I'm talking about the start, okay? Now, Max Verstappen has come a long way, but 2021 was the last time we saw Max Verstappen in a title fight. And in that title fight, and I'm probably going to say this a couple of times this weekend, in that title fight, Max Verstappen ended up bottling the start. It's one of the few times that Lewis Hamilton beat him on the start on the slower tyre. Max, I think, was on the softs. Lewis, I think, was on the mediums. And at the start, it went to pot. Max then did that desperate lunge. Lewis went off. Maybe controversial, but had Lewis not gone off, there would have been an accident, in my opinion. But, and there we go. But when it counted to get the start right, it was funny enough, Lewis Hamilton did it. Did Max bottle? Don't know. Maybe. He bottled that whole weekend. In terms of he had the fastest car in qualifying on the soft tyres. He couldn't match Lewis even in the first few laps. The pace was not there. It was looking ominous, really, wasn't it? For there we go, for young Lewis Hamilton. And then it just didn't do very well, did it? I'm sorting out the green screen. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, and then it just went a bit bust for him, didn't it? Sadly. So, but let's now, as I'm trying to do the green screen, let's now get into our drivers, shall we? Our winners and losers for the Qatar Grand Prix. And here we are for our Qatar Grand Prix, 4-hour winners and losers. Finally, after my little, I don't want to say tirade, that's a bit wrong maybe, I don't know. But there we go. So when we look at the last people, I mean, no, it's not really unfair. They kind of like had, you know, Ollie Behrman, yeah, Hulkenberg as well, didn't really feature much in the race, did they? I'm not saying. I'm almost saying that. Yeah, we're not really gonna bother with these three. And Pierre Gasly, it was just like, yeah, you turned up to the race. I don't even want to say they're. I don't even want to suggest they're like massive minuses, if I'm honest. But Ollie Behrman, I might be going crazy here because where did Ollie Behrman? I'm trying to think. Yeah, Ollie Behrman. Yeah, not classified after 41 laps. So yeah, moving on from that though. In terms of the classifications, Isaac Hadjar technically was classified. We'll get into him in a bit. But then Pierre Gasly, as you've got on the screen, he was a lap down. Yeah, very average, very average for Pierre Gasly. Very average again for Esteban Ocon. I mean, was it even worth turning up? Esteban, and he's still completely getting rinsed, isn't he, by his teammate again, Lance Stroll. Kind of like an anonymous weekend. Colapinto, he did a bit better. He finished 14th after, you know, pretty much starting near the back. But still, it's Colapinto. He is the only driver on the current grid, if I'm correct, who has not yet scored a point. Next up, really disappointed. I mean, what is going on? What is going on with this man, Lewis Hamilton? It's absolutely savage, isn't it? A lot of people, including me, are really feeling really sorry for this guy. What's he got to do? What's he got to do to win? Or even score points now? Is this becoming an epidemic? I think one race to go, fine. If we are here and it's like this time next year and we're having the same issues, I think he's going to retire. But I think I think the cars will suit him more. So I think this 7-time world champion, the greatest of all time in terms of stats, he deserves another chance because of who he is and everything he's achieved. Bortoletto finishing 13th. Yeah, kind of like anonymous during the race again. You know, along with Alex Albon, just outside the points, wasn't he? Finishing 11th. So he's going to be really disappointed that, again, Carlos Sainz gets that elusive podium that Alex Albon hasn't got. Is Alex Albon going to be the next Hulkenberg? He's looking at Carlos Sainz here with tears, I imagine, saying, God, I just want a podium. Give me that podium. So the first of our pluses, I'd like to say, and that's Yuki Tsunoda, who did a really solid job, didn't he? Finishing 10th, not bad, given that he is in the part-used third-hand car that is the Red Bull sister car of Max Verstappen. Also, good mention of Isaac Hadjar. He had good pace throughout. He had better pace than Liam Lawson. What are you going to do? Charles Leclerc just gets in on the pluses simply because, yes, Charles Leclerc actually scored a point. And it looked like that might not happen because Ferrari, as we said, was the 7th fastest car. So technically there are 12 drivers that were going to be faster. Embarrassing for Ferrari. A really embarrassing weekend, and in particular for Hamilton. So Fernando Alonso, he finished 7th. Yeah, about where you'd expect Fernando Alonso. George Russell, I was going to put him behind Fernando Alonso, but he didn't. He had that bad start, didn't he? And lost lots of places. He kind of sort of gained a few back and just finished behind Kimi Antonelli, albeit he was, a good 20.2 seconds. Nearly a pit stop behind his teammate in the end. So Lando Norris, yes, it is kind of a positive, but he's like about 6th, I think, into our top 10 at this point. Simply because he messed up the qualifying, but this is the race we're talking about. So in the race, he didn't get a good start, and that was pretty much it, wasn't it? Should he have said, I'm going to pit when Oscar Piastri didn't? I think maybe he should have been ruthless. And that's one thing he hasn't got, ruthless. But that's good in a way. And if he wins his champion, he will be like Damon Hill, a gentleman's champion. Next up, Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson, yeah. Okay, 9th. But bearing in mind, you know, the pressure he's under to look good, particularly against Isaac Hadjar, I think he's done himself quite proud. I think he's done himself well. Enough to save himself? I'm not sure. So Kimi Antonelli just missing that podium simply because, you know, of a little mistake, or clearly letting Lando through if you speak to Red Bull. Sad times, because he would have basically, you know, he would have been there had he been able to pass Carlos Sainz. But it was Carlos, well done Carlos Sainz for that 3rd place. what can we say? Absolute brilliant. It was great. It's really, really great to see. And obviously next up we have Max Verstappen. The only reason why I'm not giving him driver of the race is because this man here, Oscar Piastri, did everything to be the man of the race. And in spite of the ridiculous strategy that the team gave him, but he was the man of the race. Closely followed by Max Verstappen. But there we go. That's pretty much it. So there we go. Qatar explained. Yeah, we've done the data. I'm now moving to this page as we are. Oh look, the green screen. Look at that. As we are now about. I'm about to leave you. Thank you very much. And it's quite telling that we leave you with 408 points for Norris, 396 for Verstappen, and 292 for Piastri. Until then, we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much. If you made it to the end, give us a subscribe. That'd be amazing. Indeed, that would make me extremely happy. If you're already subscribed, thank you very much. And if you made it to the end, we're not worthy. Thank you very much. And we will no doubt speak to you soon.